The cold cut through her skin, but nothing hurt more than the betrayal hidden beneath the luxury of that mansion. As the freezing water poured down, a secret system captured every second of her suffering. Justice didn't arrive with words. It arrived with armored vehicles, hard evidence, and a father ready to act. If this story has you hooked, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and let us know what city you're watching from. Now, back to the story. Maya had always believed that true love was something that arrived like a thunderstorm, sweeping you off your feet, impossible to ignore. And that's exactly how Ryan had entered her life on that autumn afternoon in Aspen, when golden leaves blanketed the sidewalks of Main Street, and the crisp mountain air carried that signature scent of pine and hot chocolate. She had just left the bakery where she worked as a pastry chef, her apron still dusted with powdered sugar, when she bumped into him on the corner. Literally bumped, sending the papers he was carrying scattering across the damp ground from a recent shower. He was tall, elegant, dressed in a grey suit that contrasted with the casual style of the mountain town. His dark eyes met hers as they both bent down to gather the documents. Maya felt her face flush, apologizing over and over, but Ryan just smiled. A smile that seemed sincere, almost shy, completely different from the confident man she would soon discover him to be. He said it was no problem, that it was actually his fault for not watching where he was going. He asked if she knew a good coffee shop nearby, explaining he was from Denver and in Aspen on business, closing deals for the tech company he ran with his family. Maya pointed to the cafe at the end of the street, the one with the rustic wooden tables and lace curtains in the windows. Ryan thanked her, hesitated for a moment, and then asked if she'd like to join him. After all, she knew the town better than he did, and it would be a way for him to apologize for the near accident. Maya glanced at her watch, thinking of her father waiting for her at home for dinner, but something about the invitation, the way Ryan looked at her, as if she were the most interesting person he'd met in a long time, made her accept. That afternoon turned into 2 hours of easy conversation, laughter, and mutual discovery. Ryan talked about his projects, about how he wanted to expand the family business, to create something bigger, more meaningful. Maya told him about her passion for baking, how she'd learned all her recipes from her Italian grandmother, about her plans to one day open her own boutique bakery. He seemed genuinely interested, asking questions, remembering details. When they finally said goodbye, it was already dark, and the Christmas lights that decorated the town were beginning to twinkle in the trees. Ryan asked for her phone number. Maya gave it to him, feeling that flutter in her stomach that only comes when something special is beginning. He called the next day, and the next, and the next. Within 2 weeks, he was making regular trips from Denver to Aspen just to see her. He brought flowers, imported chocolates, small gifts that showed he paid attention to what she said. Maya felt special, seen, loved in a way she had never experienced before. Maya's father, Judge Ed Miller, watched it all with the natural caution of a man who had spent decades on the bench dealing with the worst aspects of human nature. Ed was a respected man throughout the region, known for his unwavering integrity and his fair but firm sentences. He had retired 3 years ago after a 40-year career, but his gaze still held that ability to assess people with surgical precision. When Maya introduced Ryan, Ed was polite, cordial, but Maya noticed the way her father observed her suitor's every gesture, every word. "Are you sure about this guy, honey?" Ed asked one night after Ryan had returned to Denver. They were in the living room of the simple but cozy home where they lived, a classic Aspen-style chalet of stone and timber, with a fire crackling in the hearth and the sound of rain tapping against the roof. Maya was curled up on the sofa in a blanket, still wearing that goofy smile. "I am, Dad. He's wonderful. You saw how attentive he is, polite, ambitious. He has plans, goals, and he treats me like a princess." Ed adjusted his glasses, a gesture Maya knew from childhood meant he was choosing his words carefully. "Ambition is important, Maya, but character is everything. That kind of over-the-top. Attention at the beginning can be genuine, or it can be strategic. I just want you to take it slow to get to know his family, the environment he comes from." Maya laughed, kissing her father's cheek. "You're being overprotective, as always. I can take care of myself, and Ryan is different, Dad. I can feel it. Ed didn't press the issue, but Maya saw the worry that never left her father's eyes. At the time, she chalked it up to his natural protective instinct, the fear of losing her. After all, it had been just the two of them. Since her mother passed away when Maya was still a teenager, the victim of an illness no treatment could defeat. Ed had raised his daughter alone, balancing a demanding career with the responsibilities of being both a father and a mother. Now, seeing his only daughter falling in love, planning a life that would no longer include their cozy routine, was surely difficult for him. The relationship moved quickly. Ryan was insistent in his plans. He wanted Maya to meet his family, to see the mansion where he grew up on the outskirts of Aspen, a massive property surrounded by native forest and protected by state-of-the-art security systems. Maya was impressed by the luxury, by the understated opulence that permeated every room. Ryan's mother, Margaret, was an elegant and cold woman who barely made eye contact with Maya when she greeted her. His father, Mr. Hayes, was a businessman too busy to pay attention to anything that wasn't his bottom line. The family owned tech companies, investments in various sectors, properties scattered across the state. Ryan was the heir, the son who carried the expectation of continuing and expanding the family empire. During dinner on that first visit, Maya felt small, out of place. The conversations revolved around numbers, contracts, influential people she didn't know. Ryan held her hand under the table, squeezing it now and then, as if to say it was okay, that she belonged there. But Maya wasn't sure she did. Her world was made of flour, eggs, sugar, and vanilla, of customers who came back to the bakery just to chat, of handwritten recipes in old notebooks, of simplicity and human warmth. There, in that mansion of marble and crystal, everything seemed calculated, cold, mechanical. When Ryan proposed to Maya 6 months after that first afternoon, at the coffee shop she hesitated. Not because she didn't love him, but because something inside her, a small, insistent voice, whispered that maybe it was too soon, too fast. But Ryan was persuasive. He said he knew what he wanted, that she was the woman of his life, that it made no sense to wait when they were both so sure. He talked about building a family, about giving her everything she deserved, about how perfect it would be. Maya looked at the ring, a diamond solitaire that probably cost more than she would earn in years working at the bakery. She looked at the man proposing to her, down on one knee at the Maroon Bells overlook, with the sunset painting the sky orange and pink, and she said yes. The wedding was grand, much more than Maya had ever imagined for herself. Ryan's family insisted on organizing everything, a lavish ceremony in one of Aspen's most beautiful chapels, followed by a reception at the family mansion itself. Maya would have preferred something more intimate, but Ryan argued that it was important for business, for the family's image, that they do something memorable. Ed walked his daughter down the aisle, elegant in his dark suit, but Maya felt the tension in his arm. Before handing her over to Ryan, her father whispered softly, just for her to hear, "If you ever need me, no matter the reason, no matter the time, I'll be there. Always." Maya felt her eyes well up, but smiled, thinking it was just the natural emotion of a father giving his daughter away. She didn't realize in that moment that they were prophetic words. The first few months of marriage were just as Maya had imagined. Ryan was attentive, romantic, present. They honeymooned in Paris, toured Italian wineries, and came back tan and happy. Maya kept working at the bakery, even though Ryan suggested she didn't need to anymore, that she could focus on other things, maybe start her own business. But Maya liked that routine, that connection to something that was hers alone. It was when Maya discovered she was pregnant that things began to change, subtly at first, almost imperceptibly. She was 3 months along when she told Ryan, nervous and excited at the same time. They hadn't planned on having children so soon, but the news came as a welcome surprise, or at least Maya thought it was. Ryan was silent when she showed him the positive test, a silence that was too long, too heavy. Then he smiled, but it was a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He said it was great, that they were ready, that it would be perfect. But something had shifted in that moment, something Maya couldn't name but could feel like a cold draft from a window she didn't know was open. The small changes began. Ryan started working later, traveling more frequently. When he was home, he seemed distracted, distant. Maya attributed it to work stress, to the new contracts he was closing. She herself was tired, nauseous, her body adjusting to the changes of pregnancy. She left her job at the bakery when she hit the 5-month mark because standing all day was becoming difficult. It was then that Maya realized how small her life had become. Without work, without the routine that connected her to the outside world, she found herself confined to the mansion, waiting for Ryan to come home, watching TV, trying to decorate the baby's room but without much energy or enthusiasm. She called her father almost every day, but Ed was busy with his own projects. Classes he taught at the university, legal consulting. He noticed the sadness in his daughter's voice, asked if everything was okay, but Maya always said yes, that it was just pregnancy fatigue. Ryan started making comments about the weight Maya was gaining more than the doctor recommended according to him, about how she dressed, always in those loose, comfortable clothes that hid her shape, about how she didn't dress up anymore, didn't wear makeup, didn't get her nails done. Maya tried to explain that she was pregnant, that her body was changing, that she felt bloated and tired. Ryan would just say that other women managed to stay beautiful during pregnancy, that it was a matter of making an effort. The criticisms became more frequent, sharper. Ryan started controlling what Maya ate, saying it was for the baby's health. He questioned her when she went to visit her father, asking why she needed to go so often, if she couldn't be alone for a few hours. He checked her phone, asking who she was talking to, why she took so long to answer his texts. Maya tried to talk to him, to say she was feeling suffocated, controlled. Ryan denied it, said she was being dramatic, that the pregnancy hormones were making her too sensitive, that he was only worried about her and the baby, that it was natural for him to want to know where she was, who she was with, that if she had nothing to hide, she shouldn't be bothered by his questions, and Maya began to doubt herself. Maybe she was being dramatic. Maybe the hormones really were affecting her perception. Maybe Ryan was just concerned and she was misinterpreting it. After all, he had never yelled at her, never been physically aggressive. It was just words, just questions, just suggestions. When Maya entered her 7th month of pregnancy, Ryan started sleeping in the mansion's home office. He said he needed to work late, that he didn't want to wake her with his coming and going. Maya spent her nights alone in the immense bedroom, staring at the ceiling, feeling the baby move inside her, wondering how her life had come to this. It was on one of those lonely nights that Maya heard voices from downstairs. Ryan was home. She had seen his car in the garage, but he wasn't alone. A woman's voice, low laughter, the clinking of glasses. Maya went down the stairs slowly, holding her heavy belly, trying not to make a sound. She stopped at the half-open door to the living room. Ryan was on the sofa, and next to him, too close to be just a work colleague, was a woman. Blonde, elegant, dressed in a tight outfit that highlighted every curve. She was laughing at something Ryan had said, touching his arm with familiarity. Ryan was looking at her in a way Maya hadn't seen him look at her in months. Maya pushed the door open. The creak made them both turn. The woman moved away quickly, but not quickly enough. Ryan stood up, his expression shifting between surprise and irritation. "Maya, what are you doing up? You should be resting." "Who is she?" Maya's voice came out firmer than she expected. Ryan sighed as if dealing with a stubborn child. "This is Veronica, a business partner. We were discussing an important contract. It's nothing you need to worry about." Veronica smiled, a cold, calculated smile. "A pleasure, Maya. Ryan talks about you all the time. Congratulations on the baby." Maya didn't answer. She looked at Ryan, at Veronica, and then turned and went back upstairs. She heard Ryan mutter something to the woman, the sound of the front door closing minutes later. When Ryan came into the bedroom, Maya was sitting on the bed, silent tears streaming down her face. "Why are you acting like this?" Ryan asked, not even trying to comfort her. "Why do you always turn everything into a drama? Can't I even work in peace in my own home?" "Work?" "Ryan, it was almost midnight. She was all over you. Do you think I'm an idiot?" "You're paranoid, Maya, and frankly, it's getting exhausting. No wonder I have to find peace elsewhere. Look at you. You don't take care of yourself. You're constantly crying. You've turned our home into a battlefield." The words cut deep, deeper than any physical blow could. Maya felt something break inside her, a shield, an illusion. Ryan was no longer the man she had met at the coffee shop. Maybe he never had been. Maybe she had only seen what she wanted to see. Ryan left the room, leaving Maya alone once more. She placed a hand on her belly, felt the baby kick, and made a silent promise. She would find a way out of there. She would protect her child. She would reclaim the strength she had let slip through her fingers during those months of subtle manipulation. But Maya didn't know that the worst was yet to come. That night was just the beginning. That Veronica wasn't just a business partner. And that Ryan, when he felt threatened or crossed, was capable of cruelties she could never have imagined. The temperature in Aspen began to drop drastically that week. It was the beginning of the harsh, Rocky Mountain winter, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and turns the early mornings into an ordeal. Maya felt the cold more intensely because of the pregnancy, her body working double time to keep the baby warm. Ryan had heaters installed in every room, but Maya realized the cold that bothered her most wasn't coming from outside. Veronica started showing up at the mansion more often, always with some work-related excuse, always staying late, always looking at Maya with that smile that didn't reach her eyes. Ryan no longer bothered to hide their closeness. He would touch Veronica's shoulder casually, laugh at her jokes, ask for her opinion on matters he used to discuss with Maya. Maya tried to confront him again, but Ryan just turned it around, saying she was being baselessly jealous, that it was ridiculous to think he'd be interested in another woman when he had a pregnant wife at home. That Maya needed to control her emotions, that she was pushing people away with her insecurity. And so Maya shut down. She stopped questioning. She stopped demanding explanations. She retreated to her room, to her silence, to her waiting for the baby to be born, waiting for something to change, waiting for a miracle she wasn't sure would come. Ed called every day, but Maya answered in monosyllables, saying everything was fine, it was just fatigue. Her father insisted on visiting, but Maya always made excuses. She didn't want him to see what her life had become. She didn't want to admit that maybe her father had been right from the start. Then it started to snow. A rare blizzard, even for Aspen, covering the town in a white blanket that under any other circumstances would have been magical. But there, in that isolated mansion, surrounded by woods and protected by technology that now felt more like a prison than security, the snow only heightened Maya's sense of isolation. And it was on that night, when the temperature plummeted even further, when ice coated the window panes and the wind howled through the pines, that Ryan entered Maya's room with an expression she had never seen before, a mixture of anger, coldness, and something else, something dangerous. "Get dressed," he said without preamble. "We need to talk, and it's not going to be in here, in the comfort of your room." Maya felt her heart race. The baby seemed to sense the tension too, moving more agitatedly. She got up slowly, grabbed a coat, trying to understand what was happening. But Ryan was already gone, leaving the door open, waiting for her to follow. And Maya, not fully understanding what awaited her, but feeling deep in her soul that her life was about to change irrevocably, slipped on her slippers and followed her husband down the stairs, toward the biting cold of the night that awaited them outside. The freezing air hit Maya like a punch the moment Ryan opened the door, to the back patio. It was the kind of cold that cut the skin, that made your lungs burn with every breath, that turned each movement into a painful effort. Maya hesitated at the threshold, instinctively holding her belly, her body begging her to go back inside, to the warmth, to the relative safety of the room where at least she had blankets and walls protecting her from the merciless winter. But Ryan was already outside, standing in the middle of the marble patio that in the summer was an elegant space for parties, with its huge potted palms and Italian designer light fixtures. Now covered in a thin layer of ice and snow, the marble gleamed under the automatic security lights that had switched on at the movement. Ryan turned to her, and his expression held something that made Maya's heart pound. It wasn't just anger, it was contempt. It was as if he were looking at something that disgusted him, that disappointed him deeply. "Come here." It wasn't a request, it was an order, delivered in that cold voice Maya had been getting to know over the past few weeks. "Ryan, it's too cold, I can't be out." Here, think about the baby. Maya tried to keep her voice steady, but it trembled, from both the cold and the fear that was beginning to settle in her chest. The baby. Ryan laughed, but it was a humorless, bitter laugh. It's always about the baby, isn't it, Maya? You think this baby solves everything? That it ties me to you forever? Maya didn't understand at first. She stood there confused, the cold starting to seep through the thin coat she had hastily thrown on. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm tired of this charade. I'm saying you're not the woman I met anymore. I'm saying for months I've had to put up with this pathetic version of you, crying, complaining, playing the victim. The words fell like stones, each one hitting Maya squarely. She tried to process it, to understand where all this was coming from. This explosion of cruelty. Ryan, if I did something wrong, we can talk about it. But not here, not like this. Please. It was then that Maya heard footsteps behind her. She turned and saw Veronica coming out of the house, also dressed for the cold, but in an expensive fur coat, knee-high leather boots and matching gloves. She was holding something in her hand. It took Maya a few seconds to realize what it was. A hose, the garden hose that was coiled up against the outer wall, connected to the sprinkler system. What is she doing here? Maya looked from Veronica to Ryan, trying to piece together a puzzle that made no sense. Veronica is my partner, in every sense of the word, Ryan said with a disturbing calmness, as if he were commenting on the weather. And it's time you understood your place in this story, Maya. You're not the star anymore. You never really were. You just served a temporary purpose. Maya felt her legs weaken. The reality of those words, the coldness with which they were spoken, the faint smile on Veronica's face. It all started to click into place in a horrifying way. Ryan's distance hadn't started with the pregnancy. It had started long before. Maybe it had always been there. Maybe she had never been anything more than a pawn in a game she didn't understand. Ryan, I'm your wife. I'm carrying your child. Maya tried to appeal to something, anything that might be left, of the humanity in the man she had married. And that's exactly why you need to learn a few things. Ryan nodded at Veronica, who began to uncoil the hose, connecting it to the outdoor faucet. The sound of the water starting to run was loud in the icy silence of the night. Maya started to back away toward the door, but Ryan was faster. He grabbed her arm, his grip tight, preventing her from moving. You're going to stay here. You're going to listen to what I have to say, and you're going to learn to be grateful for everything I've given you. Let me go, Ryan, please. Tears began to stream down Maya's face, freezing on her cheeks. Veronica approached, the hose still off, but the threat implicit in her gesture. She looked at Maya with a mix of pity and satisfaction. You know, Maya, I almost feel sorry for you. So naive, so convinced you were special. Ryan told me how easy it was to win you over. A little pastry chef with small dreams. Did you really think he wanted you for love? Shut up. Maya didn't know where the strength came from, but the words came out with an intensity that surprised even her. You don't know anything about us. Veronica laughed. I know everything, sweetie. I know Ryan was calling me while he was on his honeymoon with you. I know he needed someone intelligent, stimulating, someone on his level. Not a woman who smells like flour and butter. Ryan continued to hold Maya's arm, watching the confrontation with an almost clinical interest. Maya realized, in that moment, that this was all planned. It wasn't a burst of anger. It was a cruel performance designed to break her, to show her exactly how insignificant she was in his eyes. The baby moved inside her, a sensation that usually brought comfort, but at that moment only intensified Maya's fear. Her child. They were doing this in front of her child, who, though not yet born, could feel the stress, the danger, the terror his mother was experiencing. Please, Maya tried one last time, her voice breaking. Do whatever you want to me later, but not now. Think about the baby. He doesn't deserve this. Ryan finally let her go, but only to shove her toward the center of the patio. Maya stumbled, nearly falling on the icy marble, managing to catch her balance at the last second. The cold from the floor seeped through her thin slippers, her feet already starting to go numb. Veronica, show her what happens when someone becomes dead weight in this family. And then Veronica turned the spigot. The water that came out wasn't cold. It was freezing. A powerful jet hit Maya in the chest, sending her staggering backward. The house's internal pipe heating system kept the water at room temperature inside, but upon contact with the night air it became something sharp, almost painful. Maya instinctively raised her arms to protect herself, but the stream was relentless, aimed with precision by Veronica, who seemed to be enjoying herself. "Stop!" Maya screamed, her voice lost in the roar of the water. "Please stop!" But they didn't stop. Ryan watched with his arms crossed, as if observing a science experiment. Veronica moved the hose, hitting Maya from different angles, soaking her clothes, her hair, causing her to slip on the icy marble. When Maya tried to run for the door, Ryan blocked her path. When she tried to crouch down to protect herself, the jet hit her from above. Maya felt her legs give out. She fell to her knees on the marble, the pain of the impact reverberating through her body. Her hands tried to brace her, but they slipped on the layer of ice that was forming. She fell to her side, her belly hitting the ground with a force that made her scream in pain and fear. The baby. Her baby. What was this doing to her baby? The water kept coming. Maya could no longer get up. She lay on the ground, curled in a fetal position, trying to protect her stomach, shivering violently. The cold was no longer just uncomfortable. It was penetrating, visceral, making her teeth chatter uncontrollably, her skin turn a bluish hue, her muscles contract in involuntary spasms. "I think that's enough," Maya heard Veronica say, but the voice seemed to come from far away, as if she were underwater. "She's learning her lesson." "A little longer," Ryan replied, "just to make sure she doesn't forget." More water, more cold. Maya couldn't think clearly anymore. Her body was going into shock, her system desperately trying to protect the baby, directing all remaining warmth to her uterus, leaving her extremities unprotected. Her fingers were completely numb, her lips chapped and purple. Her vision was starting to blur at the edges. It was then that something strange happened. The patio lights, which until then had maintained a steady white glow, began to flash. It wasn't a random flicker. It was a pattern. Red, red, red. Maya could barely process what it meant, but somewhere in the distant, still functioning part of her consciousness, she realized something had changed in the house's system. Ryan noticed it too. He looked up at the lights, frowning. "What is that?" Veronica turned off the hose, also looking around in confusion. "I don't know. Maybe a glitch in the security system." Maya lay on the ground, soaked, shivering, unable to move. She tried to speak, but only a low moan escaped her throat. The baby had stopped moving. That thought, more than anything else, made Maya try to focus, to hold on to consciousness. She couldn't pass out. Not now. She needed to know if her baby was okay. "Let's go inside," Ryan said, already turning toward the door. "Leave her there. When she's ready to apologize, she can come back." Veronica hesitated for a moment, looking at Maya collapsed on the ground. For the first time, something that might have been guilt flickered across her face. "Ryan, she looks really bad. Maybe we should at least bring her inside." "She's faking. She always makes a scene. Leave her," Ryan said, walking into the house without a backward glance. Veronica lingered for a few more seconds, but then she too turned and went inside, closing the door behind her. The patio lights continued to flash red. Maya was left alone in the cold, in the dark, in a silence punctuated only by her own shivers and ragged breaths. She didn't know how much time passed. It could have been minutes or hours. Everything had become a fog of cold and pain. Maya tried to move, but her muscles wouldn't respond properly. She managed to drag herself a few inches, but the effort left her exhausted. She closed her eyes, feeling consciousness slip away. That's when she heard the sound. At first, she thought she was hallucinating. A low, deep rumble, like engines. Then, voices, quick footsteps, bright lights, different from the patio lights, more intense, more focused. "Maya, someone is calling. Can you hear me?" A hand touched her wrist. Fingers searching for a pulse. Maya tried to open her eyes, but everything was blurry. She could make out shapes, people dressed in black, moving with speed and efficiency. We have a critical victim, 7 months pregnant. Vitals are weak, advanced hypothermia. We need to warm her up now." Maya felt something warm being placed over her. A blanket, no, several blankets. Something was being positioned under her belly, a directed heat source. Firm but careful hands turned her onto her side, checking her reflexes, her breathing. "The baby," Maya managed to whisper, though she didn't know if anyone heard. "Her? My baby. We're taking care of him too. Stay with us. You're safe now." Safe. The word seemed impossible. How could she be safe? Ryan was in there, inside the house. Veronica was in there. She was still on the patio, still in the place where they had tried to break her. But the voices were different, the hands were gentle, and slowly, very slowly, some warmth began to return to her body. Maya managed to focus her vision enough to see the uniforms of the men helping her. They weren't ordinary paramedics. The patch on their uniforms was from a private security firm. And then she saw the leader of the group, a tall, serious man holding a tablet. He looked at Maya with a mix of professionalism and something else, something that looked like contained rage. "Ms. Miller, my name is Captain Davis. Your father sent me. The monitoring system he installed in your medical bracelet detected an emergency." He gestured to Maya's wrist, where she wore a bracelet her father had given her as a wedding gift. She had never paid much attention to it, thinking it was just a pretty piece of jewelry with some basic health features. But Maya understood now. It wasn't just jewelry, it was a safety device. Her father, with all his caution, all his suspicion of Ryan from the very beginning, had found a way to protect her even from a distance. The bracelet had monitored her body temperature, her heart rate, and when it detected the dramatic drop in both, it had sent an alert. The property's security cameras, the ones Ryan had installed thinking he was protecting the house from outside intruders, had captured everything. The automated system had sent the footage directly to the security team Eddie had discreetly hired, an insurance policy he had hoped he would never have to use. But he had needed it. And now, as Maya was carefully placed on a thermal stretcher, as her vitals were monitored in real time by portable medical equipment, as warmth slowly returned to her body and her baby's, she realized that her father had always known, had always sensed it, had always been prepared for this moment. "Where's my dad?" Maya asked, her voice still weak but firmer than before. "He's on his way," Captain Davis said, looking back toward the property entrance where more vehicles were approaching, "and he's not alone." Maya followed the captain's gaze and saw, through the tears that were once again streaming down her face, but now from relief, from gratitude, from hope, a larger car pulling up beside the security vehicles. The door opened and Ed Miller got out, his posture as erect as ever, his eyes immediately searching for his daughter. Their eyes met for a brief moment, but it said everything that needed to be said. Maya was alive. She was safe. And Ed had kept the promise he had made at the altar on her wedding day. He would be there, always. But Maya's rescue was just the beginning. There were still scores to settle. There was still justice to be served. And as Ed walked toward the mansion door, where Ryan was now watching from a window with an expression that mixed shock and fear, Maya knew that this night was far from over. Captain Davis gestured to 2 of his men, who immediately took up positions at the mansion's door. "No one in or out without my authorization," he ordered. Through the fog still clouding her mind, Maya heard the sound of more sirens, approaching. These weren't just private security vehicles now. They were official squad cars, police, and ambulance. The situation had escalated beyond Ryan's control. Maya closed her eyes for a moment, finally feeling some sense of security, of comfort. The baby had started moving again, faintly at first, but each movement was a gift, a confirmation that they had both survived. Survived the cold, the cruelty, the deliberate attempt to break her spirit, and perhaps even endanger her life and the life of her child. When she opened her eyes again, she saw her father kneeling beside her, holding her hand, silent tears streaming down his face. Ed Miller, the stern, controlled judge she had known her whole life, was crying openly, without shame, without trying to hide the emotion that overwhelmed him. "My girl, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't push harder. that I didn't pull you out of here when I knew something was wrong. I'm so sorry you went through this." Maya squeezed her father's hand with what little strength she had. "You saved me, Dad. You always knew. You were always ready." "And now he's going to pay," Ed said with a firmness that left no room for doubt. "Ryan and that woman, they will answer for everything. The cameras recorded it all. There's irrefutable evidence, and I will personally see to it that justice is served." Maya nodded, but at that moment, justice was secondary. What mattered was that she was alive, that her baby was alive, that the nightmare was over. There would be time for the rest, time for lawsuits, for a divorce, for rebuilding her life. But right now, all Maya wanted was to feel the warmth return completely to her body, to hear a doctor confirm that her baby was okay, and to leave that horrible place and never come back. Captain Davis approached Ed. "Mr. Miller, the ambulance is ready to transport your daughter to the hospital, but first, the police need to ask a few questions, and there's the matter of the perpetrators inside the house." "You can arrest them," Ed said without hesitation. "Attempted murder, reckless endangerment, aggravated assault. I'm sure the DA will be able to think of a few more charges when they see the footage." Maya was carefully placed in the ambulance, the thermal blanket still wrapped around her, the monitors registering the gradual improvement in her vitals. Before the doors closed, she looked back at the mansion that had been her prison and saw Ryan being led out by police officers, his hands cuffed behind his back. Veronica was beside him, also in handcuffs, her face no longer showing that smirk of superiority. Now there was only fear. Ryan tried to shout something, to argue, but the officers weren't interested. Ed had made sure the case would be treated with the seriousness it deserved, had called his contacts, ensured there would be no easy way out for the assailants. This was no longer a private matter, a family issue to be resolved internally. It was a crime, documented, witnessed by technology that didn't lie, that couldn't be manipulated or convinced to change its story. The ambulance doors shut. Maya closed her eyes, finally letting the tears she had held back during the whole ordeal flow freely. She cried for what she had lost, for the illusion of love that turned out to be a lie, for the naivety that led her to ignore the signs that had always been there. But she also cried with relief, with gratitude, with renewed hope. The ride to the hospital seemed quick. The sirens cleared a path through the streets of Aspen, the town Maya loved now witnessing her rescue. At the emergency room, a team was already waiting. The high-risk pregnancy, the extreme cold exposure, the physical and emotional trauma, it all required immediate, specialized attention. As she was examined, as doctors and nurses asked questions, checked her reflexes, and prepped an ultrasound to check on the baby, Maya finally allowed herself to relax. Every word the doctors spoke was a confirmation of hope. Her body temperature was rising. Her heartbeat was stabilizing. The baby, miraculously, seemed to have been spared the worst. Her water hadn't broken. There were no signs of premature labor. "You're very lucky," the obstetrician said, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and steady hands. "A few more minutes in those conditions, and we could have had a very different outcome. But you're strong, Maya, and so is your baby." Maya smiled, a weak but genuine smile. Strength. She didn't feel strong. She felt broken, used, betrayed. But maybe strength wasn't about not breaking. Maybe it was about surviving the break and still breathing, still fighting, still hoping. Ed stayed by his daughter's side through all the tests, all the procedures. He held her hand when she was in pain, wiped her tears when the emotion became too much. And when they finally moved her to a private room, when the lights were dimmed and the night turned into early morning, Ed pulled up a chair and sat by Maya's bed. "I'm not leaving you alone," he said. "Not ever again." And Maya, wrapped in warm blankets, in a safe room with her father beside her and her baby still safe inside her, finally let sleep take her. A deep, healing sleep, free from the nightmares that had dominated her nights in the mansion. But even as she slept, a part of Maya knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where she would have to find a strength she didn't know she possessed, where she would have to make difficult decisions, where she would have to rebuild her life from scratch. And this time, she would do it differently. This time, she would listen to her intuition. This time, she wouldn't ignore the signs. This time, she would be the star of her own story. Maya woke to the soft morning light filtering through the hospital room window. For a few seconds, she didn't know where she was, her mind still foggy between sleep and reality. Then the memory came rushing back like a wave, bringing with it the cold, the water, the fear. Her body tensed automatically, but then she felt her father's steady hand on hers, and his voice, hoarse with exhaustion but comforting, brought her back to the present. "It's okay, honey. You're safe. I'm here." Maya turned her head and saw Ed sitting in the same position as hours before, as if he hadn't moved all night. His eyes were red with fatigue, but they were alert, watchful. Around the room, Maya noticed other details. Flowers in a vase on the side table, an extra blanket folded on a chair, a tray with coffee and toast that someone had left for her father. "What time is it?" Maya asked, her voice still weak but firmer than the night before. 8 in the morning. You slept for almost 10 hours. The doctors said it was the best medicine to let your body rest and recover." Ed leaned forward, picked up a glass of water, and offered it to her. "Drink slowly." Maya drank, feeling the cool water soothe her throat, which was raw from screaming the night before. She placed a hand on her belly, a now automatic gesture, and felt the baby move. The sensation brought tears to her eyes. "Is he okay?" "He's great. The obstetrician came in 3 times during the night to check. She said it's a miracle, but that you're both fighters. The baby has a strong heartbeat. He's positioned well, no signs of fetal distress. You were incredibly lucky, Maya." "It wasn't luck." Maya looked at her father, her words thick with emotion. "It was you, that bracelet, the security system, everything. You knew something could happen." Ed sighed, a look of guilt crossing his face. "I was afraid. From the first day I met Ryan, something bothered me. The way he looked at you, like you were a trophy to be won, not a person to be loved. The rush to get married, the gradual isolation I noticed starting right after the wedding." Ed paused, choosing his words. "I tried to talk to you, but I didn't want to push. You seemed happy, or at least convinced you were. So I took precautions. I installed the monitoring system in the bracelet, hired a security team on standby, set up alerts for emergencies. I prayed I'd never have to use it. But when the alert came in last night, showing your temperature plummeting, your heart under stress, I knew my worst fears had come true." Maya held her father's hand tighter. "You saved me, Dad. You saved me and your grandson. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to thank me for doing what any father would do," Ed said, discreetly wiping away a tear. "But now we need to think about what comes next. There are decisions to be made, and they won't be easy." Before Maya could answer, the door opened, and the obstetrician, Dr. Fernandez, walked in. She was a woman in her 50s, with graying hair in a neat bun, and eyes that conveyed both competence and compassion. She carried a clipboard and a portable ultrasound machine. "Good morning, Maya. It's good to see you awake and alert. How are you feeling?" Maya did a quick mental check. Her body ached, especially her back and knees where she'd hit the marble. Her throat was dry and scratchy. Her fingers were still a little numb. But she was alive, she was conscious, and her baby was moving inside her. "I'm better. Sore, but better. That's to be expected. You suffered a sharp drop in body temperature, which caused a series of reactions in your body. But last night's tests showed you've recovered remarkably well. Let's do an ultrasound now to make sure the baby is also responding well," Dr. Fernandez said as she prepared the equipment. Maya lifted her hospital gown, exposing her belly where a faint bruise was already forming on the side that had hit the floor. Dr. Fernandez frowned when she saw it but didn't comment, just applied the gel and positioned the transducer. The image appeared on the screen, and Maya felt her heart clench with emotion as she saw her baby, well-formed, moving slightly. "Look at that," Dr. Fernandez pointed to different parts of the screen. "Perfect heartbeat, 145 beats per minute. Placenta is well positioned, amniotic fluid levels are good. His position is great for this stage of gestation. Your baby really is a warrior, Maya." "Is it a boy or a girl?" Maya asked, realizing she had never asked before. Ryan had never shown any interest in knowing, so she hadn't pushed it. Dr. Fernandez smiled. I can check if you'd like to know. Maya looked at her father, who nodded, his eyes shining. I do. I need to know. I need to start thinking of him as a person, not just the baby. Dr. Fernandez adjusted the transducer, searching for the right angle. It's a boy, a healthy, strong little boy. Maya felt the tears return, but this time they were tears of joy mixed with a fierce determination. A boy, her son, who would never grow up in an environment of cruelty and manipulation like the one she had experienced, who would never see his mother humiliated or mistreated, who would grow up knowing the value of respect, of kindness, of the true strength that comes not from dominating others, but from protecting those we love. Thank you, Doctor, Maya said, wiping her tears as the doctor finished the exam. I'm going to keep you here for another 2 or 3 days for observation. We want to be sure there are no lasting effects from the cold exposure and that the baby continues to do well. But if everything continues on this track, you'll be discharged to continue your recovery at home. Dr. Fernandez wiped the gel from Maya's belly. Is there anything else I should know? Any discomfort you haven't mentioned? Maya hesitated, then decided to be completely honest. My marriage is over, Doctor. I'm going to have to move, start over. Are there any restrictions? Any special care I should take? Dr. Fernandez looked at Ed, then back at Maya, and nodded with understanding. You'll need relative rest, no intense physical exertion or heavy lifting, but practical. Changes, as long as you have help, are perfectly fine. The most important thing is your mental and emotional health. Prolonged stress is not good for you or the baby. If leaving a toxic environment is necessary, then that's what you should do. After the doctor left, Maya and Ed sat in silence for a few moments. Maya looked out the window, watching Aspen wake up, the streets filling with tourists even in the middle of winter, the shops opening, life going on as usual. For them, it was just another beautiful day in the mountains. For Maya, it was the first day of the rest of her life. Dad, I want to leave him. I want a divorce as soon as possible, Maya said, with a firmness that surprised even herself. Ed nodded, a look of approval on his face. That's the right decision. And what about the criminal case? Maya turned to her father. I want to press charges against both of them, Ryan and Veronica. I want them to pay for what they did, not just for me, but to make sure they never do this to anyone else. It's already in motion, Ed said, pulling out his phone. The security footage is with the police. Statements are being taken. Captain Davis and his team are witnesses to the state you were found in. The case will be airtight. They'll try to argue it was just a cold shower, that I'm exaggerating. Maya knew Ryan well enough to know how his mind worked. Let them try. Ed had that look Maya knew well, the look of a judge who had seen every possible defense tactic and knew how to dismantle it. The footage clearly shows the duration of the exposure, the ambient temperature, your attempts to protect yourself, your repeated falls. It shows him blocking your exit. It shows the clear intent to cause suffering. No jury is going to see that as just a cold shower. The door opened again, this time revealing Captain Davis, the man who had led Maya's rescue. He carried a file folder and wore a serious but respectful expression. Mr. Miller, Ms. Miller, I hope I'm not interrupting, but I need to take a formal victim statement while the events are still fresh in your memory. Maya nodded, sitting up straighter in bed, ignoring the pain the movement caused. I'm ready. Captain Davis pulled up a chair and opened the folder, revealing printed stills from the security cameras. Maya had to look away from some of them, the image of herself on the ground, soaked and shivering, too hard to process. I need you to tell me, in your own words, what happened last night. From the beginning until the moment my team arrived. Maya took a deep breath and began to speak. She told him about the months of gradual isolation, the constant criticism, the discovery of the affair, and how Ryan and Veronica had orchestrated that night specifically to humiliate and break her. She spoke of the cold, the water, her ignored pleas, the pain of hitting the marble, the fear of losing her baby. Captain Davis took meticulous notes, occasionally asking questions to clarify details. Ed remained by Maya's side throughout the statement, holding her hand when the words became too difficult, offering her water when her voice faltered. When Maya finally finished, nearly an hour had passed. Captain Davis closed his folder and looked at her with an expression that mixed professionalism with something more personal, almost paternal. "Ms. Miller, I want you to know that in 20 years of doing this work, I have rarely seen anything so deliberately cruel, but I have also rarely seen anyone as resilient as you. Your statement, combined with the visual evidence and medical records, will build a solid case. Ryan Hayes and Veronica Sykes will answer for this." "Are they still in jail?" Maya asked. "They're in custody, yes. Bail was denied due to the severity of the charges and the flight risk. They both have resources, connections, and could easily leave the country if released. The judge agreed with the prosecution and decided to hold them until trial." Maya felt a wave of relief. At least for now they couldn't get near her, couldn't try to intimidate or manipulate her into dropping the charges. In the days that followed, Maya began to mentally rebuild her life. Her father brought comfortable clothes from home, books she loved, even a few ingredients so she could teach a friendly nurse how to bake a simple cake, rediscovering the passion for baking that had been stifled during her marriage. Visitors started coming. Friends from her bakery days, whom Maya had gradually drifted away from under Ryan's influence, showed up with flowers and chocolates, saying they had missed her, that they had noticed her isolation but didn't know how to help. Maya was moved by each visit, realizing how many connections she had let die, how many bridges she had burned without realizing it. News of the case had spread through town. Aspen was small enough that scandals involving wealthy families became the talk of coffee shops and hair salons. But Maya found that most people were on her side. Women who had been through similar, if less extreme, situations saw her as a symbol of their own struggles. Men who respected justice saw Ed as an example of a father who did what was necessary to protect his daughter. On her third day in the hospital, Maya received an unexpected visitor. Ryan's lawyer, an elegant middle-aged woman named Beatrice Fisher, appeared at the door with a proposal. "Ms. Miller, I've come on behalf of my client to offer a settlement." Ed, who was present, immediately stood up. "My daughter has no interest in a settlement. The criminal case will proceed." Ms. Fisher held up a placating hand. "I understand your position, but please hear me out. My client is willing to sign. The divorce papers immediately, uncontested. The house in Aspen will go to Maya, along with a substantial monthly alimony for her and the baby. In return, she drops the criminal charges." "No," Maya said before her father could even respond. "I won't accept. This isn't about money, it's about justice. It's about making sure he and that woman pay for what they did." "Ms. Miller, be reasonable. A criminal trial can drag on for years. You'll have to relive that night over and over in depositions, hearings, the trial itself. Think of the stress that will cause you. And the baby." Ms. Fisher tried to be persuasive, but Maya saw right through the tactic. "I have thought about it, and I would still rather go through all of that than let them get away with it." Maya looked directly at the lawyer. "And tell your client I don't want the house. I don't want anything that reminds me of him or that place. The child support, yes, I'll accept that, because it's my son's right. But they can keep the rest. I'm going to rebuild my life from scratch, and it will be better than anything his money could ever buy." The lawyer sighed, gathering her documents. "I will inform my client of your decision, but know that he will fight these charges with every available resource." "Let him fight," Maya replied with a calm that surprised even her. "I'll be fighting too, and I have the truth on my side." After the lawyer left, Ed hugged his daughter, pride evident in his eyes. "You've become an incredibly strong woman, Maya. Your mother would be so proud of you." "I'm learning to be strong because I have no other choice, but also because I finally understand that strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting up every single time you do." Maya looked out the window at the snow that was beginning to fall again over Aspen. "And I'm going to keep getting up, as many times as it takes." On the fourth day, Maya was discharged from the hospital. Dr. Fernandez gave her detailed instructions on rest, nutrition, and follow-up appointments. Ed had prepared everything at his house, turning Maya's old bedroom into a comfortable and welcoming space for her and the coming baby. As they left the hospital, Maya looked back one last time. That place had witnessed her rebirth, the moment she decided to no longer be a victim but a survivor, a fighter, a mother who would do anything to protect her child. The car passed by the mansion where Maya had lived. The gates were closed, chains preventing entry until legal matters were resolved. Maya looked at the property without emotion. She felt no nostalgia, no sense of loss, only an immense relief to have escaped. Back at her father's house, Maya was greeted by neighbors who had prepared a simple but warm reception. There were homemade cakes, flowers from their gardens, sincere hugs. They were simple, hard-working people who had known Maya since she was a child and were genuinely happy to have her back. That night, lying in her old bed, covered by a quilt her grandmother had made decades ago, Maya placed a hand on her belly and spoke to her son for the first time, consciously and deliberately. "My son, you haven't been born yet, but you've already taught me so much. You've taught me that true strength comes from within. You've taught me that love shouldn't hurt, shouldn't suffocate, shouldn't diminish. You've taught me that sometimes we have to go through the most intense cold to appreciate true warmth. I promise you I will be the best mother I can be. I will protect you, love you, teach you to be kind but strong, compassionate but firm. And you will never, ever see your mother be mistreated or disrespected. I promise you that." The baby kicked as if in response, agreeing with his mother's words. Maya smiled, and for the first time in months, it was a genuine smile, full of hope and possibility. Outside, the snow continued to fall on Aspen, covering everything in a pure white blanket. And inside that simple house full of love, Maya closed her eyes and slept deeply, knowing the worst was over, that the storm had been weathered, and that now, finally, she could begin the true journey of rebuilding her life and her future alongside the son who would soon arrive. The months that followed were a complex mix of physical recovery, legal battles, and preparation for the baby's arrival. Maya had settled completely into her father's house, transforming her old bedroom into a space that was both a sanctuary and a nursery. The walls, once covered with band posters and photos of high school friends, now sported soft shades of blue and white, with shelves full of children's books and a light wood crib that Ed had assembled with his own hands, a project that occupied him for weeks and was clearly a labor of love. The legal process moved forward with the meticulousness that cases of this magnitude required. The district attorney, Mark Thompson, a man known for his tenacity in domestic violence cases, had taken the case personally. He visited Maya regularly, building with her a complete and irrefutable narrative of the months of psychological abuse that culminated in that brutal night on the frozen patio. The security cameras had captured everything with disturbing clarity. Every second Maya was exposed to the freezing water, every fall, every ignored plea, every moment Ryan and Veronica displayed not just indifference, but sadistic pleasure in her suffering. The defense tried to argue that the footage was taken out of context, that a prior argument justified the action, but no context could justify deliberately putting a 7-month pregnant woman's life at risk. Maya kept working, this time from home. She started by taking small orders for cakes and pastries, and her reputation quickly spread. Through town, people came not just for the quality of her products, though they were exceptional, but also because they wanted to support her, to show solidarity. Every order was a statement that Aspen was on her side. During this time, Maya also reconnected with old friends. Julia, her best friend from the bakery, became a constant presence, helping with orders, keeping her company, and listening whenever Maya needed to vent. It was Julia who suggested that Maya consider opening her own place eventually, the small boutique bakery she had always dreamed of. "Not now, obviously," Julia said as she helped Maya decorate cupcakes for a child's birthday party. "But after the baby is born, when you're ready. You have too much talent to waste." Maya smiled, feeling a spark of excitement that had been dormant for a long time. "Maybe. We'll see how things go." Maya's belly grew each week, and with it so did her determination. She attended childbirth classes, always accompanied by Ed, who took meticulous notes as if studying for an important exam. The other mothers looked on fondly at the dedicated father, who was clearly playing the role of two parents. In one of these classes, Maya met other women who were also going through solo pregnancies, some by choice, others due to circumstances similar to hers. They formed an informal support group, meeting weekly to share experiences, fears, and hopes. Maya discovered she wasn't alone in her challenges, and that there was a whole network of strong, resilient women around her. The trial was scheduled for when Maya was 8 months pregnant. D.A. Thompson had tried to postpone it, worried about the stress it would cause her, but Maya insisted, "I want to be done with this before the baby is born. I want that when he arrives, this dark part of my life is already resolved." The morning of the trial dawned cold but clear, the sky a deep blue that contrasted with the snow still blanketing the roofs of Aspen. Maya dressed carefully, choosing a simple but elegant navy blue maternity dress, her hair in a low bun, minimal makeup. She wanted to look strong but not threatening, a victim but not fragile. Ed accompanied her to the courthouse, along with Julia and Captain Davis, who would be a key witness. The building was surrounded by reporters. The case had gained national attention, becoming a symbol in the fight against domestic violence and psychological abuse. Maya held her head high as she walked past the cameras, ignoring the questions shouted in her direction. Inside the courtroom, Maya saw Ryan for the first time since that night. He sat beside his lawyer, impeccably dressed as always, but there was something different about him. A tension, a barely concealed rage in his eyes when they met hers. Veronica sat at another table with her own lawyer, completely avoiding Maya's gaze. The judge, Judge Harrison, a man in his 60s known for his impartiality but also for his firmness in cases involving violence against women, entered and everyone rose. The trial began. D.A. Thompson presented the case methodically and emotionally. He told Maya's story from the beginning, from the whirlwind romance to the gradual isolation, the constant criticism, the discovery of the affair, and finally, the night on the frozen patio. He showed the security camera footage, which made several people in the courtroom gasp or look away. He called witnesses, including Dr. Fernandez, who testified about Maya's condition upon her arrival at the hospital, and Captain Davis, who described in detail what his team found when they arrived at the mansion. When it was Maya's turn to testify, she walked to the witness stand with Ed's help, her large belly making her movements slower. Under the jury's watchful eyes, she told her story. She didn't cry, she didn't over-dramatize. She simply spoke the truth in a clear, steady voice. She answered the prosecutor's questions, then the defense's challenging cross-examination, maintaining her composure, even when they tried to insinuate she had exaggerated the events or had financial motives for suing Ryan. "This isn't about money," Maya said, looking directly at the defense attorney. "It's about justice. It's about making sure that what was done to me is never done to anyone else. It's about showing my son when he grows up that his mother did not accept being treated as less than human. It's about dignity." The defense tried to paint Ryan as a husband, frustrated with a wife who had changed during pregnancy, who had become difficult and emotionally unstable. They tried to argue that the night on the patio was a moment of lost control, not a deliberate attempt to cause harm. But the footage told a different story. It showed calculation, it showed pleasure, it showed deliberate cruelty. Veronica, when she testified, tried to distance herself from the events, claiming she was just following Ryan's orders, that she was afraid to cross him. Maya almost laughed at the irony, the woman who had been so confident, so arrogant that night, now playing the victim. The trial lasted 3 days, 3 intense days where Maya relived every moment of those months of abuse, but also 3 days where she saw a justice system at work, where she saw people who cared, where she saw she was not alone. When the jury finally retired to deliberate, Maya sat next to her father in the waiting area, holding his hand, feeling the baby kick inside her, as if he too were anxious for the outcome. "Whatever the verdict, you've already won, Maya," Ed said softly. "You survived. You're here. You're about to bring a new life into the world. That's a victory." "But I want the other victory too," Maya admitted. "I want to hear them found guilty. I want to see justice done." She didn't have to wait long. After just 4 hours of deliberation, the jury returned. Maya went back into the courtroom, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The jury forewoman, a middle-aged woman with a serious expression, stood as the judge asked for the verdict. In the case of the state versus Ryan Hayes, on the charges of aggravated assault, reckless endangerment, and attempted battery causing serious bodily injury, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty on all counts. Maya closed her eyes, silent tears streaming down her face. Ed squeezed her hand tightly. Behind them, Julia sobbed with relief. In the case of the state versus Veronica Sykes, on the charges of complicity to commit aggravated assault and reckless endangerment, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty on all counts. Ryan remained motionless in his chair, his face a mask of shock and rage. Veronica began to cry, her hands trembling as her lawyer tried to console her. Judge Harrison banged his gavel. The defendants will remain in custody until the sentencing hearing, which is set for 2 weeks from today. Then, looking directly at Ryan, he added, "Mr. Hayes, in all my years on the bench, I have rarely seen a case of such calculated cruelty against a vulnerable person. I hope you use the time until your sentencing to reflect on your actions and the kind of man you have become." Maya left the courthouse surrounded by supporters who hugged her, who cried with relief alongside her. Justice had been served, the system had worked, and she, against all odds, had won. 2 weeks later, Maya was at home baking cookies when the contractions started. At first she thought they were just the Braxton Hicks contractions she'd been having for weeks, but these were different, stronger, more regular. She checked the clock, timing them, 5 minutes apart. This was it. "Dad!" Maya called, trying to stay calm. "I think it's time." Ed ran into the kitchen, nearly tripping over his own feet, clutching the car keys and the hospital bag that had been packed for weeks. He was pale, clearly nervous, but trying to maintain his composure. Okay. Deep breaths, just like in class. "We're going to the hospital now. Can you walk?" Maya nodded, holding her belly. "I can, but let's go slow." Maya's labor lasted 14 hours. 14 hours of intense pain, of gasping breaths, of moments when she thought she couldn't go on. But Ed was by her side, every second holding her hand, wiping her brow, whispering words of encouragement. Dr. Fernandez managed everything with expertise and kindness, and when finally, at 3 in the morning, Maya's baby was born, his first cry filled the room, and Maya felt an explosion of love so intense she thought her heart would burst. "He's a beautiful, healthy boy," Dr. Fernandez said, placing the baby, still covered in vernix and blood, on Maya's chest. 7.5 pounds. Perfect. Maya looked at that tiny, scrunched-up face, the closed eyes, the minuscule hands that gripped her finger, and she knew with absolute certainty that everything she had been through, all the pain, all the suffering, had been worth it to get to this moment. "Hi, my love," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I'm your mommy, and I'm going to love you forever." Ed was crying openly, looking at his grandson with an expression of pure adoration. "He's perfect, Maya. Absolutely perfect. What are you going to name him?" Maya had thought about it a lot. She wanted a name that meant something, that carried hope and strength. "I'm going to call him Gabriel. It means God is my strength. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that there's a strength greater than ourselves that protects us in the darkest moments." "Gabriel," Ed repeated, smiling through his tears. "It's perfect." In the days that followed, Maya learned what it meant to be a mother. The sleepless nights, the constant feedings, the endless diapers, but also the moments of pure magic, when Gabriel looked at her with those dark little eyes, when he snuggled into her chest, when he held her finger with surprising strength. Julia and other friends took turns helping, bringing food, helping with chores, holding Gabriel so. Maya could take a shower or a nap. The sentencing hearing took place when Gabriel was 2 weeks old. Maya didn't attend in person. Judge Harrison had allowed her to participate via video conference, given that she had a newborn. Ed went in person, along with D.A. Thompson. Ryan was sentenced to 4 years in prison, with no possibility of parole before serving half his term. Veronica received 2 years, also without parole. In addition to the prison sentences, both were ordered to pay substantial damages to Maya for emotional and physical distress. The judge also issued a permanent restraining order, prohibiting any contact between them and Maya or Gabriel. When Ed came home and told Maya the sentences, she was nursing Gabriel. She looked down at her son, then at her father, and nodded. "It's done then. That chapter is closed." "It's closed," Ed confirmed, "and a new chapter is beginning, a much better one." The months turned into seasons. Aspen's cruel winter gave way to spring, and with it came flowers, color, warmth. Maya established a routine with Gabriel and slowly began taking more orders for cakes and pastries. Her reputation grew, and with it, so did her confidence. It was Julia who brought the news of a small commercial space for rent on Mill Street, in the tourist heart of Aspen. "It's small, but perfect to start, and the rent is reasonable. You should at least go see it." Maya went, with Gabriel in a sling strapped to her chest. The space was small, as Julia had said, but it had a charming storefront, a kitchen in the back that needed renovations but was functional, and a prime location. Maya could picture herself there, creating her cakes, interacting with customers, building something that was truly hers. "I'll think about it," she told Julia, but she already knew what her decision would be. 2 weeks later, Maya signed the lease. With the help of friends, her father, and the settlement money she had saved specifically for this purpose, she renovated the space, installed new equipment, and decorated it in a cozy, elegant style. She named her bakery Gabriel's Goodies, a tribute to the son who had given her the strength to start over. The grand opening was on a sunny spring Saturday. Half the town seemed to show up, a line forming at the door before it even officially opened. Maya, with Gabriel sleeping peacefully in a portable crib in the back, served cakes, pies, artisan truffles, and cookies that melted in your mouth. People came not just for the food, they came for the story, to show support, because they believed in redemption and second chances. Ed was there for every moment, helping where he could, greeting customers, and mostly watching his daughter with a pride that practically radiated from him. Maya had transformed. She was no longer the naive young woman who had fallen for the wrong man. She was a strong woman, a business owner, a mother, a survivor who had chosen not to be defined by her trauma, but by her resilience. The months turned into a year. Gabriel took his first steps in the bakery. His first words were "Mama" and "Grandpa." Maya expanded the menu, hired an assistant, and started teaching baking classes on weekends. The shop became not just a successful business, but a meeting point for women who needed support, community, and hope. Maya volunteered at a shelter for victims of domestic violence, sharing her story, offering not just words of encouragement but practical action. She taught some of the women how to bake, helping them develop skills they could use to rebuild their lives. One day, 2 years after that terrible night on the frozen patio, Maya was closing the bakery when a young woman entered hesitantly. "I'm sorry, I know you're closing, but I wanted to talk to you, to Maya." Maya recognized that look, that posture. It was the look of someone going through something difficult. "Of course, come in. Can I make us some coffee?" The woman, who said her name was Caroline, sat down and began to tell her story. An abusive relationship, husband who controlled her, isolated her, made her doubt her own sanity. Maya listened, recognizing every pattern, every manipulation tactic. When Caroline finished, Maya took her hands. "I understand exactly what you're going through, and I want you to know that there is a way out. It won't be easy, but it's possible, and you are not alone." Maya spent the next hour talking with Caroline, giving her contact numbers for shelters, specialized lawyers, support groups. She offered her own story as proof that it was possible to survive, to overcome, and even to thrive after trauma. When Caroline left, with tears in her eyes but also with a glimmer of hope, Maya knew she had found her purpose. It wasn't just about baking cakes. It was about using her experience, her story, to help other women find their own strength. Gabriel grew quickly, a cheerful, curious boy who loved helping his mother in the bakery. Mixing batter with clumsy but enthusiastic little hands, he was the center of Maya's world, her motivation, her joy. And Ed, the devoted grandpa, was present for every important moment, every birthday, every developmental milestone. Maya occasionally thought of Ryan, but without anger or bitterness. He was serving his time, and what happened to him after his release was no longer her problem. She had moved on, built a new life, and had no intention of looking back. On an autumn afternoon, 3 years after that fateful night, Maya was at the park with Gabriel. He was running through the golden leaves, laughing with that carefree joy only children possess. Ed sat beside Maya on the bench, watching his grandson with a smile. "You did good, honey," Ed said suddenly. "You've built a beautiful life for yourself and Gabriel. I'm so proud." Maya looked at her father, at her son, at the town that had embraced and supported her. "I think about how different it could have been if you hadn't installed that security system, if the team hadn't arrived in time. But they did, and you survived, and now you're not just living, you're thriving." Ed put his arm around his daughter's shoulders. "And you know what makes me proudest? It's not just that you survived. It's that you chose to use your pain to help others. That requires a rare strength of character." Gabriel ran up to them, throwing himself into Maya's lap with leaves in his hair and cheeks rosy from the cold. "Mommy, Grandpa, look how many leaves I found." Maya hugged her son, feeling that unconditional love only a mother knows. She looked at the leaves in his little hands, at the smile on her father's face, at the blue sky above, and felt a deep gratitude to be there, in that moment, alive and whole. That terrible night on the frozen patio could have destroyed her. It could have taken not just her life, but her will to live, her ability to trust, her hope for the future. But it hadn't. Instead, it had revealed a strength inside her that Maya never knew she possessed. It had shown her that even in the darkest moments, there is light waiting to be found. It had proven that true love, the love of a father for a daughter, the love of a mother for a son, is stronger than any cruelty, any coldness, any attempt to break the human spirit. Maya looked at Gabriel again, at the little boy who was her reason for getting up every morning, for fighting, for dreaming. "You're my miracle," she whispered, kissing the top of his head. "And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you grow up knowing you are loved, you are valued, you are precious." Gabriel looked up at her with his innocent eyes and said, "I love you, Mommy." And in those 3 simple words, Maya found everything she needed: purpose, joy, redemption, love. Maya's story didn't end on that cold night in Aspen. In fact, that's where it truly began. It was the beginning of the story of a woman who refused to be defined by her trauma, who chose strength over victimhood, who decided her son would grow up seeing a resilient mother, not a broken one, who turned pain into purpose and suffering into wisdom. And as the sun set over Aspen, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Maya held Gabriel's hand in one of hers and her father's in the other, and walked toward home, toward the future, toward the life she had built with her own 2 hands from the ashes of what was destroyed. Because that is the truth of the human spirit. It can be wounded, it can be tested, it can be pushed to its limits. But it cannot be broken. Not when there is love, not when there is hope, not when there is the fierce determination to not just survive, but to live fully, love deeply, and create a legacy of strength for those who come after. The night of the rescue had been the end of a terrible chapter, but it had also been the beginning of something beautiful, something powerful, something that would prove that even in the most intense cold, the warmth of love and human resilience will always prevail. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Maya and Gabriel has deeply touched your heart. If you were moved by the strength of this mother who turned her pain into hope, please hit that like button right now, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our stories, and tell us in the comments which moment marked you the most on this journey of overcoming. Did you identify with Maya's courage? Do you know someone who also had to start over from scratch? Share your thoughts with us. Every day we bring intense and true narratives like this one, revealing the deepest and most resilient side of the human soul. Stories that show that no matter how dark the night, there is always a light waiting for us. We'll see you in the next episode with another story that will stir your emotions. Until then, remember, the strength is within you. It always has been.